we kind of had our catch-up day the other day when we played D&D, so we haven't really...
You know what's going on.
Yeah. We both are pretty well aware of what's happened with the other person's life.
How was your Tuesday?
My Tuesday was uneventful. I had a job interview, which I did mention. Yeah, that was about it. And I found the webcomic.
I worked for 12 hours, went home, and went to bed.
That sounds nice.
Yeah.
And then this morning I slept in because I kind of forgot we were doing this. But I guess if that's all we got, we could start the show.
All right.
Sip of coffee for the working man.
Here we go.
That's one nice thing about monitoring my own audio is I can tell you how intense that slurp was. And it's also nice too because like I've got the window open so I can hear if there's birds chirping, or I now know what annoying sounds are being picked up in my microphone.
Nice.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's just me.
No, it's I got dogs and cats and this is funny. This might show up in the microphone at some point where we got a new cat. His name is Lewin, and he screams. He'll just be sitting there going "Meow" by himself for no reason. So that might show up at some point.
Nice.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Anyways.
Okay.
Warning! This movie podcast actually discusses movies. Be aware that it may discuss any of the following elements: endings, surprise twists, unexpected cameos, and all manner of spoilers. If this doesn't appeal to you, why listen to a movie podcast? Without further ado, please enjoy our feature presentation, The ShameFULL Picture Show.
Hello and welcome to another episode of The ShameFULL Picture Show. I am Michael Viers, and with me, as always, is a man who lives his life by the motto, don't say goodbye, say good journey.
Nick Richards.
On today's episode, we'll be doing our long touted? Not, why did I write taunted?
Touted. Yeah, long touted.
Long touted. I wrote taunted.
That is different.
I think it was autocorrect.
You know, it's wrong, but I think it still works.
Yeah, it's
long
okay.
taunted.
A long taunted. That's now intentional, but never realized. ShameFULL Picture Show, where Nick and I are recommending the other see a movie that is considered by many to be bad, but we both love. So on today's episode, we'll finally be discussing Nick's choice of Masters of the Universe and my choice of Super Mario Brothers. I was trying to find a different way to deliver each one.
It was good. This is going to be late 80s tastic.
Yeah, well, actually, mine's like the 90s.
Is it? Okay. Like the intellectual property hit in the late 80s.
Yeah. So first off, so I should just explain to everyone. Normally we read the intro, play the trailer. We've got two movies. We're going to be talking about them. We're going to be intercutting back and forth. So I'm going to read both intros and play both trailers. You're going to hear a lot of me talking, hear a lot of sound, and then we're going to get to the conversation.
I'm going to take a short nap.
Okay. Please do. I'll wake you up when we're done.
All right.
Masters of the Universe is the live-action fantasy movie based on the extremely popular toy and cartoon He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. He-Man is a brave warrior who, with the help of his friends Man-at-Arms, Teela, and Gwildor, fight to protect the world of Eternia against evil Skeletor and his horde of evil. He-Man finds that Skeletor has possession of a cosmic key that'll open a portal to anywhere. While trying to get it back, He-Man and his friends get transported to current-day Earth and must trust two unsuspecting Earthlings to help them get home and protect the universe from the evil Skeletor. Autocorrect kept making it into skeleton. Directed by Gary Goddard, from a script by David Odell, who did Dark Crystal, Masters of the Universe was met with generally unfavorable reviews. Many felt the film's combination of Conan and Star Wars was boring and a misfire. That being said, the film would go on to gain a cult following for its comedy, crazy effects, and a very committed performance by star Dolph Lundgren. The film stars, as mentioned, Dolph Lundgren, Courtney Cox, who I was not expecting, Meg Foster, Billy Barty, and Frank Langella as Skeletor. But we aren't done yet. Super Mario Brothers is also a live-action fantasy movie, but is based on the largely popular video game franchise Super Mario Brothers. The film, though, takes a very wild turn as it chooses to keep very little from the core mechanic of the game, except for our two faithful plumbers, Mario and Luigi. Mario and Luigi live in Brooklyn and are struggling to make ends meet, as all the good plumbing jobs keep getting scooped up by their bigger competitors. Mario and Luigi meet a young, beautiful archaeologist named Daisy, and is trying to dig up some dinosaur bones buried beneath New York City. The dig site, we find out, is actually a portal to another world, which is only accessible with a stone fragment that Daisy wears around her neck. Daisy, Mario, and Luigi are transported to this crazy dinosaur-themed cyberpunk world buried under New York that's run by the evil King Koopa. Mario and Luigi must save the human world from the evil King Koopa while trying to find out the mystery behind Daisy and her necklace. Directed by the duo of Rocky Morton and Annabelle Jankin, who actually did Max Headroom, if you remember that.
Oh, yeah.
From a script by Parkett Bennett, Terry Runt, and Ed Solomon. Super Mario Bros. was also a huge flop. Critics and fans alike criticized the film for its unfaithful representation of the video game and bad story. However, despite the negative reviews, many of the performances, most notably Bob Hoskins, were praised, as were the flashy special effects. Pardon me. Much like Masters of the Universe, the film would gain a very rabid cult following and even received an unofficial comic book series. The film stars Bob Hoskins, John Leguizamo, Samantha Mathis, and Dennis Hopper as King Koopa. Now here's a couple minutes of trailers.
At the far end of the universe, there is a planet ruled by a being of utter evil. And there is only one man who dares challenge him. They are locked in a battle to the death. A battle that will take them across the heavens.
Stop him!
A battle that will finally be fought.
I want them hunted down and brought to me!
Across the face.
Police! Nobody move!
Of Earth.
I think I'm gonna need some backup.
Can you show us the way?
Of course. No.
Somebody help me!
From a distant galaxy, they have come to Earth. Dolph Lundgren as He-Man, Frank Langella as Skeletor. Only they have the powers to be Masters of the Universe. Live the adventure.
Feeling we're not in Brooklyn no more.
Luigi!
Daisy! You better not hurt us!
They're brothers. They're plumbers.
Hold on. Mario! Luigi!
They're on the trail of a kidnapped princess and a mystical meteorite.
It's incredible!
That gives anyone who possesses it the power to rule the universe.
Get me the rock! Come and get it, lizard breath!
Now, they must rescue the princess.
Luigi!
Alien species escaping.
And make it safely back.
Later, alligator.
To our world.
Are you alright?
Before time runs out.
Save him! Get him! Yes!
No, stop!
Super Mario Brothers. This ain't no game.
So, I have to just mention real quick. This was the best double feature you can do because they're essentially the same film in reverse.
Yes, where you're like the portal to the real world versus the like video game. Like I found I watched Mario Brothers first.
Yeah.
And then
you watched the one you don't know first. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I haven't seen the Masters of the Universe film since I was a kid, so there was a lot I didn't remember, including Courtney Cox's performance. And that was my first thought watching. Well, one of my first observations watching Masters of the Universe was how similarly they chose to interpret this other media franchise into film. Like, well, they've obviously got to meet Earth somehow.
Yeah. And we've talked about this on the Dark Crystal episode. I'm a big fan of Strangers in a Strange Land type films. So the fact that the beginning of the it essentially started as you're the man from the future.
The hunter from the future.
The hunter from the future. Thank you. And then it transplanted these types.
Fire.
It's transplanted these types of characters to Earth. And I just love that there's a huge subplot of this musician who can play the synthesizer music on the cosmic key, so he has to take it to the guy who owns the music store. Perfect.
Man, I'm pretty sure it's Japanese.
So
that musician is one of the main roles in Star Trek Voyager. Also, he plays Tom Paris.
Open it. That's an order. Not only late, but improperly dressed. That belongs on your collar, Mr. Paris.
Allow me. As ship's captain, I hereby reinstate you to the rank of lieutenant, with all the privileges and responsibilities therein. Your performance on this ship over the past year has been exemplary. I expect more of the same.
You won't be disappointed.
Congratulations, Lieutenant.
I didn't notice a little box on my chair.
Really?
In Star Trek Voyager.
I would have never have known that.
Who I also recently saw in a single episode of Star Trek Next Generation.
Really?
Yep. So
okay.
He's been popping up in my life a lot lately.
Okay. Well, are we talking about the guy who owns the music store or the boyfriend?
The boyfriend.
Okay, so that's I don't remember his name at the moment.
Yeah.
Whatever. His name's not important.
His name is Stan.
Is it Stan?
No, it is. It definitely is not Stan, but I'm gonna call him Stan.
Because funny enough, the guy who owns the music store, I think I'm on the Wikipedia page right now trying to find out that character's name, and I swear to God, the guy who owns the music store gets billing above the boyfriend, which I find really funny.
That's amazing.
Yeah, but so how do you want to frame this episode, Nick? We're talking about two films at the same time.
Right, I know. Well, I think it makes sense to start with, as we have framed this as the Shameful episode. Maybe we can talk about what doesn't work with those movies and why we love them anyway.
Okay. So do you want to start with? Should we just go back and forth?
Yeah. I'll kick us off here.
So tell us about your love for Masters of the Universe.
One of the things that I think was a misfire, and in a way that's, clearly I'm looking at this from our perspective today.
I love that you're starting with the negative right away.
Well, yeah. You're like, what did you love about it? Well, here, Michael, let me tell you what was wrong.
Let me tell you what sucked.
I think it was a real miss, but
I think I lost you there for a second,
of that era of filmmaking and adaptation. To tie it into real world Earth.
Okay.
I think both of these films would have been more successful and universally brought up a couple clicks. Certainly it's not going to fix all manner of sin, but had Super Mario Brothers existed in the Super Mario Brothers world and Masters of the Universe.
It went to Koopa Land or Koopa City.
I would rather not acknowledge that present day Earth exists in these franchises.
Oh, I I'm weird because I liked that in Mario. I liked the idea of this hidden civilization that's kind of rooted in the ideas of Earth. I don't know.
It's like that moment with Gwildor when he's eating ribs at the barbecue. He's like, oh, and what? This is meat? It's like, I guess. But it takes you out of the storyline for a cheap laugh that isn't that good in the first place. I don't know.
Man-at-Arms selling that laugh, though, is what made it. Just really just in the scene is what made that work for me.
Yeah. And I'll bring Dark Crystal back into this conversation. Okay. I think Dark Crystal, from this perspective, Dark Crystal was much more successful. And had they brought human beings through a portal into the Dark Crystal world instead of the Delphine, then I'm immediately less interested in it.
Yeah. Well, for me, the reason that Super Mario Brothers works for me is because it's essentially like the Mario Brothers. Well, because hear me out. Because think about it. Think about what the Mario Brothers were like in the 90s. We've talked about this a little bit. It was a fucking side-scrolling platformer game that the whole mechanic of the game, everything that we know about the game was built to service the gameplay, not to there's no story.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And even the elements that are there, narratively, made zero sense.
So I kind of like that they're I read a really amazing review that it's like an essay. So I'm not going to read it on the air. But I am going to make reference to a specific part, if you don't mind.
Not at all. Is that a painting of Santa Claus peeking out from the floor of your closet?
Hold on, let me pull up my camera. And there's also Frankenstein I'm seeing. I can't get my camera to zoom, but more than likely, yes, that is a Santa Claus.
He's watching me. The eyes are following me.
There is a great documentary on Netflix called I Am Santa Claus about Santa Claus performers, people who every year become Santa Claus.
When I finally found out that there was any such thing as men who liked men, I knew that was what I had been all along.
And there was a Santa Claus from Texas who was just a big old gay teddy bear. And me and Amanda both loved his character so much that she painted a picture of him.
Aww. That's amazing.
And then it got really sad because there were some parental groups that were trying to ban him from being Santa Claus because he's gay, and it's people suck.
Yeah.
But so I'm just gonna read the first two paragraphs if that's okay with you.
Yep.
Because they pretty much sum up everything I feel about this. He goes into great detail in this about how Super Mario Brothers is influenced by the works of David Lynch and David Cronenberg, but I'm not going to go into that. His first two, and this is by a reviewer called Zeke Knott. I'm reading his review off of Letterboxd.
Okay.
He says Super Mario Brothers is a masterpiece of an adaptation. Now, when I say that, I don't mean that it has adapted Mario faithfully. Of course not. What it did do was turn Mario into something cinematic. Hot take. Mario is antithetical?
Antithetical.
Mario is antithetical to cinema. It is inherently anti-cinema as a series. It was formed in the prognitive goo of new artistic medium. Its character designs were created out of sheer necessity. Cohesion went out the window in favor of legibility, appeal, and recognize it. Wow, I cannot just pronounce these words. To be recognized.
Recognizability.
Mario, in its first outing, did not have a fleshed out world. It didn't need to, because the world was set dressing for the function of the game, the interactivity. Mario's design, and all other designs in the game, are the coat of paint on the mechanisms that the Nintendo Entertainment System churned out. There was the poorest excuse of a story because the impetus of the character's actions wasn't in the game. It was physical. It was you. Because of this, the film Super Mario Brothers and the games of the same name have completely different... I'm not even going to... It's a French word. Raison d'etre?
Oh, yeah. Raison d'etre.
Yeah, thank you. Films are forged for spectacle, for storytelling. Games, in their early years at least, were formed for their interactivity. So, how do you turn something that is, by its very nature, against cinema into cinematic? How do you succeed making a video game adaptation while the horrific redundancies capitalist wheel that churns them out? Well, it's simple. You kill Miyamoto. You change everything about his beloved series. You let the author die, and you strip back everything but the essence of what makes these characters Mario and Luigi. Reinterpret what everything means. What would a Mushroom Kingdom look like? Who is King Koopa, and what does he want? While avoiding sexist tropes. And on top of all that, you add a healthy amount of film literacy. So other than the words I couldn't pronounce, I think he does a really good job of summing up and how I've always felt like I've not been able to put into words why I thought that a very unsuccessful adaptation of Mario was a successful adaptation of Mario, and he makes a great point because it dares to create its own lore.
Right, yeah.
So
I really enjoyed, and it took me a while to really grasp what the point was and that version of it, but the Mushroom Kingdom element of how the Mushroom Kingdom was represented in the film.
I thought it was like I never got it as a kid. Like I never thought of it as Mushroom Kingdom, but then I was like, oh, goo, there's mushrooms. It finally clicked. It's like it's not as bright and cheery as you imagine it.
Yeah,
but
it's because it's not big like toadstool style mushrooms. Mm-hmm. It's fungus.
Yeah, I also appreciate any movie that's going to put Mojo Nixon in the film.
As we had a little Facebook riff going with somebody else that we met at the film festival.
Koopa, you're a terrible leader.
If your film don't have Mojo Nixon, then your movie could use some fixing.
Yeah, and then like I appreciate just like how like I think I texted it to you, but like how weird of a choice it was to make Dennis Hopper King Koopa.
Right? I think he did great with it, though.
And like Bob Hoskins has said that like Super Mario Brothers, the one film that he regrets in his career. It's like, well, shame because you were actually really
you were great. John Leguizamo was, John Leguizamo. There are people who dislike him and love him, and I tend to lean more towards love.
Me too. Me too. And then like I like how they reinterpreted things, like the character of Big Bertha, the large black lady. In the video games, Big Bertha's a fish. I was like, how are you gonna like interpret that?
Right.
Or like the fact that they're able to jump because these special boots look super cool.
Right.
So.
Yeah. I mean, short of him eating a flower and then magically throwing fireballs,
which I was hoping for.
Oh, that was probably in the sequel, right?
Yeah, the sequel where she shows up looking all Mad Max with a gun. And it's like we got some work to do. So it's like I appreciate Super Mario Brothers for all the reasons you. It seems like I don't want to say you didn't for all the things that you wish that. Masters of the Universe would have had a little more of is the reason I appreciated Super Mario Brothers. I liked the mixture of the two worlds, and for being very early CGI, I've seen worse.
Right? Yeah. Even like the effects in Masters of the Universe when Skeletor's barge is like going down the street.
The effects in that movie were amazing.
That's actually pretty legit.
The worst effect in the movie was the fact that a skeleton had an upper lip.
Right. One thing that I really appreciated was Skeletor's. I'm assuming it's a combination of makeup and prostheses, but that was like that worked for me. Still, his makeup held up.
There's a great line in the documentary about Masters of the Universe, which I want to talk about just in a minute. The phenomenon of Masters of the Universe, this toy line, and how successful toys eventually had to become a TV show because usually it's TV show becomes toys. This is the case where toys became a TV show,
right.
And that was very indicative of the 80s. That happened quite a bit.
Yeah, but Transformers,
G.I. Joe,
Thundercats.
But there's a great moment in the documentary. I think it's called "By the Power of Grayskull." It's the ultimate fan documentary for Masters of the Universe, and Frank Langella is in the film, and he's talking about his time working on He-Man. And like I always just assumed that Frank Langella would be the type it's like, oh, this film is beneath me, I did it for a paycheck or something like that. And he wanted to do it because he saw how much his kids loved playing with these toys.
Oh.
So he's like, I want to do something for them. By the time the movie came to be, their interest in the He-Man toys was waning. But he said it's one of the most fun he's had making a film. But what I love is I look at designs of Skeletor, and he's this big, ripping,
blue-bodied
creature,
reason.
and he's like, I don't like to toot my own horn, but I was in very good shape at the time, and I wanted them to reduce my costume to nothing so I could show off my body. And I was just like, he goes on like a 2-minute rant about how he just wanted to show off his body because he's like, I was pretty youthful at the time, and I was like, I love you, Franklin Joe. I did this role, like he said. He kind of says, other than his kids, one of the reasons he did the movie is because he wanted to show off his body.
He wanted to be half naked. That's amazing.
But the only one who was half naked was Dolph Lundgren. And actually, it's funny. Right. I watched this movie with Amanda and a friend of mine. His name is Fink. He was going to be on our Godfather episode. If you remember, back when we had all those technical difficulties.
Right.
And he came over to watch it. And I don't remember how it came up, but like we're talking about Dolph Lundgren just being in a loincloth, and like I think it might have been Fink, I don't know, but someone was like, he's like a big sweaty man just came up and hugged that woman, and me and Amanda were like, who wouldn't want to be hugged by a half naked Dolph Lundgren? He seems like he'd be really squishy and easy to hug. And then me and Amanda were both defending a half-naked Dolph Lundgren more than we probably should have been.
I just want to give you a hug. Well, and a conversation I was having watching this was apparently, like, Dolph Lundgren has, like, some crazy, like, graduate degree in super science. And he was just working as a bodyguard for...
it's a master's degree in chemical engineering from the University of Sydney. What the f***? And he has also got a degree in chemical engineering from the Royal Institute of Technology.
What? So there's that.
Yeah.
And he was just kind of working as a bodyguard when whoever he was working for, like, convinced him, like, you need to be an actor. You need to act. And now he's He-Man.
Yeah, and it's like, and the little bit I've listened to some interviews of Dolph Lundgren in the past, and he seems like he's just a very down to earth dude.
Right, like an everyman.
Yeah, where he's like, I didn't expect to have this career, but here I am. I was just a smart bodybuilder. Because like he had a cameo in a James Bond film, and then he did Rocky, and then he did this, and like I don't know, he like I said in my intro, he came into this like really committed to this role of this hulking He-Man, and like it's like I feel like other actors would be like, you're gonna make me play a character named He-Man and just like ham it up, but like. There was an earnestness to Dolph Lundgren's performance.
He bought into the concept.
Yeah. And I was like, I appreciate you for that, Dolph. Like, you seem to care.
Back to our initial jumping off question. I think the other thing about Masters of the Universe that I think was a put off for me, especially in my younger days.
I don't know why I said it that way.
The production design was pretty divorced from the look that I think was part of what made the Masters of the Universe toys and cartoon so popular. Like, it's a very different look, kind of crystally futuristic.
And I kind of
a very muted color palette. As watching it this time, I appreciated it much more as something separate from the franchise, as its own story.
Oh yeah, totally. And
but I think so many times we've talked about expectations and how the expectations you have going into a film affects your experience with the film.
Yeah, because like I remember. Continue.
Going into Masters of the Universe, and I'm sure it's a very similar thing for Super Mario Brothers. You have the expectations of the franchise with you, and it's really challenging to go into it and appreciate it as a standalone thing. And that was something that I could do this time that I couldn't do as a kid.
Yeah, and I thought they because obviously the designs in the cartoon were a lot more cartoony, and I know that the creators of the He-Man movie were arguing back and forth. Is it Hasbro that did He-Man?
Mattel,
I
think.
They were arguing back and forth with Mattel because, Mattel had their idea of He-Man with a really bad bowl cut, or not bowl cut, but like, and very cartoony, and if you, are you near, can you Google something real quick?
Yeah.
Google He-Man Mobius, Moebius. Mobius was this costume designer the artist they originally were using to help come up with concept art, and they wanted this. If you look at the designs, this really kind of futuristic mixture of designs and everything, and trying to keep true to some of the design, but a lot more gold plated, metallic, almost kind of like a Centurion, if you remember that cartoon design, and they shot it down. They thought it was just too far removed from the designs, and it kind of bums me out because I really love the look of some of this stuff.
Yeah.
But they were constantly fighting. It's like for things to look more like the toys, and the creators of the film are pretty much saying some of the toys don't translate to looking cool on camera, so they're going back and forth. And I felt like where they did land, I thought they had a pretty good mixture of it, where things felt practical to an extent. He-Man's not wearing anything that's not practical, but like they were able to take his toy design and make it in a way that I personally felt looked cooler than it would have if they would have just done the exact toy.
Yes, yeah. And here's my final take. I'm jumping to the final takeaway of Masters of the Universe because I feel like that's what I inadvertently led up to. As a kid, I loved the cartoon, and I did not care for the movie.
Interesting.
As an adult, I have returned to both of those, and it's the exact opposite. The cartoon is pure garbage.
Yeah.
It is absolute.
You are trespassing. What do you want here?
Hey, master! What we be wanting, you'll be knowing soon enough.
I'll know now! Monty! You always did know how to make an unusual entrance.
Yes, Skeletor, and it's nice to see you again, old friend.
And the film, I'm like, actually, this is pretty good. Like, if you take away that expectation of I am in love with the toys and the cartoon, now give me something to tack on to that, it let me down. Going into it to watch a film about a story, like, I was into it.
Yeah, I was too, and because like He-Man was before my time. It was still lingering around. Do you remember the channel Boomerang?
Yeah. Yep.
Boomerang used to show He-Man, and they used to show the new Centurions, and a lot of those action cartoons from the 70s and 80s. And I used to see it in that way, and I never disliked it. I was more of a Thundercats guy. I never disliked it. I just it wasn't my thing. I was like, it was kind of hard to think this character of He-Man, who's practically wearing nothing, was super cool. And and even the toys weren't. They had the redesigned toys in the 90s when I was a kid that were cool, but. Like, looking back at it, I much prefer the designs of the original toys and the packaging in the boxes. And if I were going to collect any He-Man toys, it was probably going to be from the original line.
Yeah.
But it was just never really my thing.
That purple and blue color palette on the packaging of the storm clouds and the lightning and stuff. I saw one in a store, like an old vintage store, and like remembered the feeling that just the packaging gave me as a kid.
But I love the idea of the He-Man toys because, like, when I was watching the documentary about it, they were talking about how they wanted to create a toy line that let the kids kind of create their own adventures.
Yeah.
And, like, they gave you a very very minimal story on the box about Castle Grayskull and the fight for power and everything, and that, Skeletor was bad, He-Man was good, and just let the kids kind of work it out themselves.
Right.
And I can see why that was appealing. I feel like if I would have grew up in the 80s, He-Man would have been my
Yeah.
But if I've learned anything from my time as a nerd, when you go back and rewatch things that you sometimes love, like especially cartoons, Thundercats doesn't really hold up as well as it holds up better than He-Man, I think it does, but not by much.
That Hanna-Barbera, like, they, Scooby-Doo works for Scooby-Doo. Scooby-Doo does not work for He-Man.
No. And same thing, they're, especially a lot of the Saturday morning cartoons, and they're trying to tack on like these life lessons and everything, and it all feels so forced. But this movie, I feel like it's weird. Like He-Man fans either love or hate it. It seems like there's no consensus. But weirdly enough, this He-Man movie makes me understand why He-Man was such a big deal.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. And since Canon Pictures produced it, Canon is they've had hits, they've had misses, but one thing I've always appreciated about them is they are not afraid to just go balls to the wall and throw all their money on the screen.
Nice.
Because that's how this film felt. It felt like they just threw all the money on the screen, and they're like, we're gonna just do it. We're gonna do a big budget, crazy He-Man movie, and the movie was made for $22 million in the 80s. That's a lot of money. And it only made 17 back, so it didn't do well.
C'est la vie.
But there was things that, like, funny enough, there was things that I both liked and I found annoying. Like, I thought the way that they tied in the Earth world was pretty. I liked the idea of Courtney Cox's character kind of dealing with loss.
I liked the concept. I felt the execution of that part of the story was really weak.
I'll agree with that.
Oh, your parents died. Oh, I'm so sad. Oh, I saw my mommy. I'm gonna now betray everything because, like, it wasn't properly supported, and I think it would have been a mistake to launch into that storyline deeper. Also, I think they could have accomplished it without. I felt that part a little cliche and tacked on.
The thing that I found really amusing, though, for me was when I started the film, I had to check the runtime. It's like, are we at the end of the movie? Because it feels like we jumped into the middle of a movie we didn't see the beginning of. Then they're storming Castle Grayskull, and they're talking to each other as if their characters are supposed to know. And I'm like, what the hell is happening? What is like? This movie did not ease you in. They're like, it's just you're along for the ride now.
Yep. Buckle up.
Yeah. And it was a spectacle to be seen for everything this movie lacked in terms of a coherent story. It was spectacle. It's like it was just like moving colors. I'm like, ooh. And
the lava lamp of cinema.
Pretty much, He-Man, the lava lamp of cinema. And I also really like the music, but I might be a little biased because it was done by Bill Conti, who did the music for Rocky.
Okay.
And like I just liked how I feel like I'm kind of reiterating the same thing. I just liked really how balls to the wall it was. Like, from the first opening matte painting, they're like, I feel like it was the filmmakers being like, you're in for some shit. So get ready.
You may not like it, but you are going to be in for something.
I also appreciated too that, like, they could only do it so much. We're trying to get around not having to say the word He-Man,
right?
Because just to say that in a serious sentence is very difficult. So they had to say it sometimes. But I appreciate it wasn't every other sentence was He-Man, He-Man, He-Man.
Right. What I find really funny about that comment is obviously this was right in my wheelhouse as a kid. I played with them all the time. And even as an adult, I've come back to the franchise and referenced it and had T-shirts and everything. It wasn't until watching this film the most recent time that I heard somebody say He-Man, and I'm like, oh, that is just an awful name.
Yeah.
Mr. He-Man, human male man.
And like, it's funny listening to the documentary where they were like we were trying to think of they pretty much say that He-Man was a temp name that ended up sticking. They were like, he's a big, strong, manly man. He-Man. It's just like it came to be, and it's like it just stuck, and it continued on. And I
never
find that
revisited it.
Yeah, they never went back and changed it. They changed a couple of the other names, but I love that that one just ended up sticking. And it's funny too. Like there was almost an eye rolling quality to it when they're talking about like when they came up with the catchphrase "I've got the power," because they're like, we've realized when kids we had them coming in playing with the toys and when we were still in the test phase that, you know, kids would get very much like parental. It's like, oh, I need you to do this with your toy because I told you to. And it's like kids really just needed to have that power. So they needed a toy where they could have the power. It's like, it just sound like I see you trying to work this out in a way that makes sense. And it just it's not working for me.
Yeah. Well, and the phrase is, by the power of Greyskull, I have the power, which just like hits my writer's brain like static. It's so doubling up on power.
Mm-hmm.
By the power of power. But
no, I'm poking fun at it, but ultimately I really enjoyed it. Like I said, Dolph Lundgren is one of the big things that sold me on the film. Because like he's really charming in the film.
Yeah.
And like I said, he's really trying. The effects were really great. I thought all the actors, no matter how small their part, were trying. They didn't have to. Like John Cipher as Man-at-Arms, like he was really going for it.
With his Tom Selleck mustache.
That Tom Selleck mustache worked really well. It worked really well.
It's very evocative of the Man-at-Arms. Like, you can't have Man-at-Arms without the mustache.
Yeah. And then going back to that scene you're talking about when they're eating the ribs and the chicken, and you know, Tila realizes that they're eating meat, and then she's like, "This is barbaric," and he just goes, "Sometimes in the pit of war, you have to do what you have to do." And it's like, you guys don't have meat in Eternia? Is everyone vegetarian? You can't tell me He-Man doesn't have a protein boost every once in a while. Look at how big that guy is.
He just gets really big jars of powdered protein.
Just grind down the roots. And like one thing I wanted to ask you about, like I've not been able to find an answer for this. Just I love the weirdness of that the cosmic key has to play music.
Right.
This weird music quality to it. I have a weird love for movies that try to force in music like that.
Where musicians are the heroes.
Yeah. Another one was Bloodhook that I reviewed for Vinegar Syndrome. A character has perfect pitch, and it comes in, and we find out that the killer is motivated by a certain pitch in music that reminds him of his child. It's a big convoluted plot, and the character who has perfect pitch was able to figure this out, and figure it's like, what a nerdy thing to do.
Perfect pitch wins again.
So I liked that, and I've got a fondness for. I never used to like them as a kid, but I'm starting to like them more now. I'm starting to appreciate more of these Conan the Barbarian type ripoffs.
Yeah.
You're the Hunter from the Future is kind of what helped kick that off for me.
Yes.
Not gonna lie, some of them are still a little cringy, but I'm starting to I'm liking more of them now.
You have to go in and embrace the cringy, like otherwise they'll swim in a different pool.
I need to just not look at the covers, because the covers make these things look so bad, cool, and then you watch it and I'm like, where's the big hulking dude from the cover? This guy weighs like maybe $150. But like on the cover, it's a big, harrowing guy with a battle axe fighting a raptor or something. And they're like, where's the dinosaurs?
They're just laying there.
Yeah. So it's like one day there's going to be one of these films that the cover's going to live up to the movie.
I think we have our next concept.
Where a movie that lives up to the cover?
Yeah, either we have to make a really lame cover or
a really great movie.
Yep.
All right. So, what else do you want to talk about for He-Man?
I think I think I'm gonna hand it over to you and have you kind of talk about Super Mario Brothers a little bit with regard to maybe some of the parts that don't work for you or where you can see the argument against it.
Okay.
And why you love it despite that.
Okay. I guess I should cut back a little bit. Super Mario Brothers is a movie that I remember seeing as a kid, and it weirdly appealed to me. I couldn't tell because even as a kid I feel like I've learned that I'm kind of a story junkie where there needs to be something to it, and Super Mario did not have much of a story. But because of this movie I could go back and play those games and kind of I now know Mario's backstory.
You reverse engineered the narrative of Super Mario Brothers.
And as a kid, where this is, for all intents and purposes, this is a cyberpunk movie, and this is my first instance of it. You can see the Blade Runner influence and stuff like that. It's super weird and dark. I remember building a little hangout out of a box and some toys that was supposed to look like the weird Mad Max police car they're driving, because I just thought all this stuff was so cool, and I liked the idea of the boot. So it just really hit me hard. Going back on it, I feel like while I love the film, and I will legitimately fight for the film a lot, and I think it actually is kind of a masterpiece. I get every single complaint against it. However, so I get every complaint against it, and I feel like they're all with merit, because someone going into this expecting a Super Mario Brothers movie and you just get the name alone, I can get why that's pulling the rug from under you. And the idea of King Koopa, who was a dragon creature in the cartoons, is now just a really skinny guy with a bad haircut. I can get all of that. I understand why people don't like it. What I feel like people struggle with this film is seeing what is actually there in return. Where, yes, it is not a direct adaptation of Mario, but what was this movie made? 1993? No one wanted a direct adaptation of Mario.
Right.
I don't think, because what would it be? We had the Captain Lou Albano cartoon, and that sucked. So that's my biggest thing, is people are like, oh, that movie's terrible because it's a bad adaptation. How would you have made Mario at the time?
Yeah.
That's my whole complaint.
It is the answer that maybe they just shouldn't have made.
And that's probably the case. Honestly, that's probably the case. Yes, 100%. This movie should not exist. I'm trying to think of the guy's name. There was a Roland Joffe, I think is his name. He wanted to make a Super Mario Brothers movie for whatever reason. I have not figured out the reason why he wanted to make this movie. But he wanted to make a movie, and he contacted Nintendo. And story has it that he just kind of flew to Japan and tried to get a meeting with Nintendo and pitched them this idea. And surprisingly, they're like, sure, let's do it.
Wow.
There's more to the story. I haven't rewatched the documentary to kind of get an idea of what how exactly it came to be. But he wanted to make a Mario Brothers movie, and he hired some filmmakers he thought could do it. The issue with that is I can't say I wouldn't be the same way if it's 1993. Mario is just a side-scrolling platformer. Has no real story other than you're saving the princess. Someone approaches me and is like, hey, do you want to make a Super Mario Brothers movie? Why are we making a Super Mario Brothers movie? Shut up, we're just making it. Do you want to do it? Okay, can I make Dennis Hopper King Koopa? Sure, do whatever you want. So it's I can't say that I wouldn't have tried to do the same thing. Just how do I make a Mario Brothers movie?
Yeah.
And how you do it is you try to make Mario and Luigi into an Abbott and Costello type duo and make it work. I feel now what you were saying before about not feeling like the whole stuff in New York worked, I feel like we needed that just as a grounding mechanism to get an idea of, to ground these characters in a sense of reality, as opposed to, can you imagine if the movie just started off in Koopa Land and that's all we ever saw?
I think I would have been, I think that I would have been able to suspend my disbelief easier if it just took place there.
I guess it comes down more to the type of fantasy that I like.
Yeah. I can be more forgiving of things. It's easier for me to write off things that might bother me otherwise as, it's just a part of that world.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you something. I have a thought process on this. What was your favorite Disney movie as a kid? Your favorite, like, a fairy tale Disney movie? Like fantasy.
Oh, that's hard.
Or what's the first one that comes to mind?
The first one that comes to mind is Hercules.
Okay, as a kid?
Yeah, well, I did it Little Mermaid was,
okay. Well, Little
my
Mermaid
sister watched. And
well, let's use both Little Mermaid and Hercules as an example.
All
Little
right.
Mermaid and Hercules are set in that world, no matter what. You are following the people in this world. Me, on the other hand, my two favorites as a kid were Alice in Wonderland and Peter Pan, about people coming from our world to a different world. Now, so I feel like that kind of molds that a little bit.
Yeah, I do love Alice in Wonderland. The books, the Disney movie adaptation, all the creepy old black and white adaptations. And while I certainly see the line that you're drawing, I did not get like Alice in Wonderland, Phantom Tollbooth, same thing.
You know what? Fair point. You
though I didn't get that kind of a vibe, even though I totally agree with the comparison that you made. It didn't give me the same feeling that I enjoy about those two films of the person being whisked away into some strange land that they have to discover and navigate.
Yeah. So for me, that's something that I wouldn't have changed. Some things that I probably would have changed is I had all this stuff thought of like a week ago. I thought it was a weird choice to have your King Koopa, who we all know, he's now known as Bowser. I don't know when that changed. When I was a kid, he was King Koopa, damn it. Or now President Koopa.
Right. It's my guess, and I could be totally wrong. I think Bowser's his first name and Koopa's his last name.
That
Bowser
works.
Koopa.
Because I'll still refer to him as King Koopa, and people are like, "Who are you talking about?" I'm like, "Shut up." To have
maybe I have it switched. Maybe it's Koopa Bowser.
Maybe,
or like Prince Charles.
Yeah,
King Koopa.
I get what they're doing, like this de-evolution gun, which I think is a really funny concept.
Yeah.
To have the world inhabited by so many human looking, like I would have gone a little bit further with some of the design and had Koopa look more like a dinosaur to begin with.
Right.
It's more a thing that he's trying to suppress.
Right. They have that little tiny sequence where his visage slips and he kind of gets all lizardy for a minute.
Have you ever seen the movie Little Monsters with Fred Savage, and they go underneath the bed? It's one of my favorite movies.
Howie Mandel?
Yes.
Hey, Maurice, like the horns.
I never forget a face. It's the other one I can't remember. Get out of here, bud.
Hey, Al, Rick Good. This is my new bud.
Hi, the name's Brian.
Hi, Brian.
Hi,
Brian.
Brian. Wait a second. What are all these stairs and ladders for?
Good question, bud. Every one of these staircases leads to some poor soul's bedroom. It's like, let me put this simply. It's a veritable cornucopia of mischief. Hey, come here. What's that on your shirt? Get out of here. Let me show you around. Let me show you straight.
So you remember like the guy who runs like the monsters like land? He's an adult that acts and looks like a kid, but anytime you get a close up, it's like you can see his face is cracking because the monster inside is trying to let himself out.
Okay,
I would have done something similar with Koopa,
Yeah.
where he doesn't look like such a perfect person. Like you can like maybe that his skin's coming off because there's a dinosaur inside trying to come out, or like
amp that up in the story. I agree.
Yeah, like but like going back to, I understand why people hate this film. I wish more people would go in and watch it with a little more of a shed the idea of why it's not a good adaptation and try to watch it more for like what they did do to it.
Yeah.
But like I said, I feel like everything that people have to say about this film is 100% fair. I just don't agree.
I found Yoshi really comedic. The inclusion of Yoshi, like a tiny little raptor.
Yeah.
Like.
And it's because apparently like, Super Mario World had come out around this time, and that was the first inclusion of dinosaurs in the Mario franchise. So they're like,
okay.
Yoshi was finally a character, and so, interesting enough, I'm on the Wikipedia page, and I can only take what they say so far. Because I've never heard. I feel like I know quite a bit about this movie, and I've never heard this. Apparently, Arnold Schwarzenegger was approached to play Koopa, and as much as I love Dennis Hopper, I feel like Schwarzenegger might have been a better Koopa.
Right, yeah.
Because he kind of sounds like a dinosaur, and there's weird like quotes in this movie that I use to this day. It's like, Mario, trust the fungus. Like if someone's unsure about something, I would come up to him, put my hand on their shoulder, and like, trust the fungus, and walk away.
And everyone, of course, got that reference, right? And nobody looked at you strange.
Everyone looks at me strange. I also found out that apparently Mojo Nixon's character was supposed to be played by Tom Waits.
Oh.
Which makes sense.
Yeah, that works either way.
Well, once again, this is from Wikipedia, so take it as a grain of salt. But apparently, Mojo Nixon's agent pitched him to the casting agent as he's a third-rate Tom Waits and half the price. I was like, oh, poor Mojo Nixon.
He knows who he is.
Yeah, he knows his slate. Surprisingly, though, the film was under consideration for best visual effects at the Academy Awards that year.
Yeah,
and,
wow.
Nightmare Before Christmas won, but the fact that Disney was like, okay, let's put Mario out there.
All right.
So, yeah, the biggest thing is, like I said, I personally love this film. I like a lot of decisions they made, and part of that's nostalgia. I know it is, but the biggest thing I always tell people is like, I get all the criticisms for this film. I get it. I just don't have to agree with it.
Yeah, and I would challenge, everyone with every movie. It's what I try and challenge myself with is go watch it again and look for things that you do like about it.
Mm-hmm. I'm one of probably the only people in this world that wanted this. I would have loved a sequel.
Yeah.
Because I mentioned it to you before. There's a comic book series out there that someone made, based on the early drafts of the script that was supposed to be made, and it was going to dive deeper in. This was gonna live out your main complaint of the film. Is other than because it's going to take place the moment the last one took place. Other than grabbing Mario and Luigi from Brooklyn, it was all going to be took place within the Mushroom Kingdom, and there's like Shy Guys riding raptors and
nice.
Daisy with a machine gun, and it just gets super Mad Max and crazy. That I would have loved to have seen.
Yeah, that's cool.
So this episode's been weird because it hasn't been the most critically analytic of our episodes. I don't think we've even talked about scenes that we liked or anything like that.
Yeah, it's tough because they're like nothing really stands out as, oh yeah, this is what really sold it for me. It's more like I enjoy these two films as like a silly fun ride.
Yeah.
Like that, there's nothing super insightful about them. I have a bunch of things that I could point out that didn't work, but what did work for me is it's just kind of a check-out fun hour and a half. That
I do have to say, I love Mario's almost fetish-like love for plumbing. Trust your tools and like that. And
and I did like the kind of the fatherly relationship that they gave to Mario to Luigi in that.
Yeah.
Typically, it seems like they are just brothers, and Luigi is like just the one that nobody cares about.
The best scene in the movie was at the Koopa police station. They were like, name Mario, Luigi, last name Mario. No, I said your last name, Mario. Luigi Mario. That entire scene.
How many Marios between the two of you? The 3. There's Mario, and Luigi Mario.
And then, like, when it cuts to them getting their picture taken, and those picture-taking guns come out, and their pictures like
Yep.
Like there was they had such an intentional sense. I guess that's one thing I also appreciate is that they weren't taking themselves too seriously. They knew the type of movie they were making, and like I said, the performance is what really sold it. Like, little things like Mario trying to help Luigi get some confidence in himself to ask out that girl, and right. Being like, our van is fixed if you'd like a ride, and then they're talking like Mario's like, he's like, he was my everything, he was my brother, he was my father, he was my mother, and Mario's like, hey.
Those moments were very charming.
Like they had good chemistry together.
Yeah.
And it's like just Bob Hoskins had a bad time with the film because he felt it was directionless. He didn't think the story was good, and apparently he got injured on set, so it's a shame because, like I said, he's so good. Like, Bob Hoskins, I've seen you in worse movies.
and those are like you said, he's not wrong.
No, he's not wrong.
But also there are people that love him, and he still had a great performance.
Yeah, and this is a weirdly high concept movie for a Mario Brothers movie.
Right. I thought that this was a really cool double feature. I would encourage others to rediscover them with an open mind.
Mario Brothers, though, is going to be the harder of the two to find.
Yeah, well, I was able to get it on like Amazon Prime for like $4.
Yeah, it's the DVD is out there. It's cheap.
You just can't stream it.
Yeah, you can't even rent it.
Right. And Masters of the Universe we streamed on, was that
Amazon Prime?
Amazon Prime.
Yeah, I think it's also on Vudu. That movie's pretty available. There's I think there's a US Blu-ray of it. There's been talks of a remake coming up.
Oh,
the issue with it, though, is the remake has gone through so many scripting changes that just to pay all the people that came before it, the movie's already too expensive, so it's going to be tough. Mario Brothers never getting a sequel. There's the online comic that if you dig hard enough, look through Reddit, you can find. There's been talks about it getting I don't want to say a remake because that's not the right term for it, but more of a I guess a readaptation of the Mario world.
Okay.
Apparently there's talks that I've heard everything from the guys who did the Lego movie making it, and so we'll see what happens with that. It's more than likely going to be animated. I don't know. I like the ballsiness of it being live action.
It is, though. I will say I have come back to the Super Mario Brothers Super Show.
Mm-hmm.
That show still holds up for me.
Does it?
In a way that Masters of the Universe really doesn't.
I haven't watched it since like at least 4 or 5 years.
Their silly live action like intro outro bumpers with celebrity guests really works for me.
Where are you watching it?
It was on Netflix for a while. I don't know if it's still on there or not.
Oh, I'm gonna find out because I know what I'll be doing before work. But yeah, they're charming. Both movies are charming. If you want to really see Super Mario Brothers in all of its glory, there is a Region B locked Blu-ray in the UK from a company called Second Sight. They're actually going to be they're going to be releasing Dawn of the Dead this year in a 4K release. So they're a pretty big company. And not only did they, I've mentioned it before, not only did they they did a 4K transfer of the movie. They jam-packed it full of special features.
Nice.
Like documentaries, interviews. Everything you ever wanted to know about the Mario Brothers movie is on that. And I recommend it.
And everything you didn't want to know about the Super Mario Brothers.
Exactly. Oh, and by the way, for anyone who does want to watch it, the Super Mario Brothers Super Show is still on Netflix.
Yes.
So I
wave your hips from side to side. Come on, it's time to go do the Mario.
So I will be watching that today. And apparently there was another one called The Adventures of Super Mario Brothers 3.
Yeah, because
you can watch on Tubi TV.
Nice. The first one took place. You could tell it took place right after Super Mario Brothers 2 was released. Because and I thought they did a pretty good job of combining the worlds of the original Super Mario Brothers and Super Mario Brothers 2, which are very different stylistically.
And then,
but the cartoon merged them together pretty well.
And then there's another one called Captain N and the new Super Mario World.
Whoa!
That you can watch on Amazon Prime. So there's a lot of Mario cartoons. Holy crap.
Yeah. I don't know how the second and third ones are. I never saw those, but the first one holds up for me.
Okay.
I'd still pop that on as background noise.
Awesome. Was there anything else, Nick, before we skedaddle for the day?
I don't think so. We've been wanting to do that double feature for a while, and while, yes, it's not our most in-depth film analysis that we've ever done, I think that I wasn't expecting that out of these movies.
Yeah, and one thing I will say is, before we wrap up, for those of you who are not following us on social media, the ShameFULL Picture Show is up for nomination, I guess.
Yeah,
the best way to say it, at the Wisconsin Podcast Festival.
We are nominated for in 3 categories.
Yeah, we are nominated for Best New Podcast, which makes me laugh because we are not new. Only thing I can think of is if someone wrote us in as a new podcast. Whatever, we'll take
People are just newly discovering us.
Yes, Best New Podcast, Best Entertainment Podcast, and then Best Podcast, just all around. And then you can vote for us on their website. Hold on,
you can also find those links on our Facebook and Instagram pages.
I'm going to read it out loud, but you can find it online. It's surveymonkey.com/r/VDFJZ8K. So you can vote for us there. Vote for us in all available categories. It's kind of a big deal, like especially because I was not expecting this.
Yeah, it just kind of hit us out of the blue.
And there's been some people out there that have helped us spread the word. My beautiful and talented wife Amanda has been sharing the shit out of it on Twitter. Stephen Millick, who runs the Twisted Dreams Film Festival, has been helping us out, and then Mike Vaughn, who wrote a movie book called Strange Cinema, has also been helping us out.
Nice.
So, yeah, I think that's about it. As always,
Cool.
Nick, where can the kiddies find you?
I'm on Instagram.
See if you can remember this.
For the Pacifist Pugilist. It's easier to remember, harder to spell.
Yeah, so Pacifist Pugilist is he's on. I'm sure if you just search for his name, it'll come right up.
Yeah, and Facebook under my name. What I will promote this time is I work for a public access TV station. I'm the station manager.
Woo!
And
that peaked.
And we've just I've been doing a lot of work on the Arts Foundation that I work for, our YouTube page, breaking off our YouTube page into 3 separate channels. So if you're into any of these things, please check us out and subscribe. We have the Midshore Community Television, where all of our shows, including the video version of the ShameFULL Picture Show, is. So subscribe there. But then we also set up an individual one for Avalon Theater, which is several of our music performances that we've had here. Most recently, I uploaded concerts from when the Wailers were here recently.
Oh, cool.
Ruben Studdard, Under the Street Lamp, which was a doo-wop group formed from the cast of the Jersey Boys, and several more that I've really been digging on. The Pierce Eden stuff, who's a kind of gravelly folk Americana group that I'm been digging on. And then our third one is for the arts competition that we run here. So if anybody is painting minded, find the Plein Air Easton YouTube page and subscribe.
Right on. I don't have anything fun to promote right now other than this show, but you can find me on pretty much all forms of social media. I am on Facebook as my name, Michael Viers. I am on Instagram at Michael_Viers, and now newly on Twitter at the Michael Viers.
Nice.
I make it easy for everyone. You can find the show pretty much everywhere. Spotify, Apple Music, Google Play, Libsyn, Stitcher. And if there's a place that you want to hear us and we're not there, just hit me up. I'll make it happen.
But mostly make sure that you're subscribing to us, commenting, liking our
review. We haven't gotten any new reviews in a while, so I've not gotten a chance to give any shout outs. Which
review, and we'll read it on the air, even if it's horrible.
Yeah.
Even if it's that I smell really bad. We will read it.
Yeah, exactly. So come on, guys. Get on it. So we've got this coming up. What do you want to do next, Nick?
Next, Nick. Let me look. We'll have a dead air moment here.
Because I've got some ideas, but I'd like to hear what your thoughts are.
I gotta head over to the Shameless Picture Show Facebook page. Oh, that's something else that I'll promo here. On our Facebook page, we each have a note posted. So by going into the notes, you can see both of our shame lists. Mm-hmm. So if there's anything that you want us to watch, let us know and we can add it. Or if there's one on one of our lists that you're really excited for us to see, point it out and we'll bump it up to the top of the list.
And then I think we also have like more in-depth ones on Letterboxd as well.
Okay. I have to edit mine. Dark Crystal's still on there.
Yeah, I gotta edit some of mine too.
There are lots on here that I wouldn't mind watching. I don't know about availability. But you had some thoughts. What are you feeling?
Well, let me first see how available it is. But I have been wanting to watch Taxi Driver.
Ah, okay.
And it's on Netflix.
Nice. Let's do it.
So next episode will be Taxi Driver.
Cool.
That'll be a very stark contrast from this episode.
That one we'll actually be able to dive into and get some good analysis on.
Good. Well, that's it, folks. Thank you for listening, as always. We love you every day of the week. Except for Sundays.
And if you have if you don't like that, I have 2 words for you.
I haven't done that in a while. And if you're not down with that, I got 2 words for you. Watch movies.
Watch movies.